Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen as we welcome you on a Tuesday afternoon to this edition of the Full Court Press on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and streaming live on YouTube. The Fan KLGN is where you can find us and watch us and not just listen to us if you can handle that much. The awesomeness. Yeah. The Young Power Sports of Logan text line is open. We had a busy day yesterday. We had a few texts trickle in after the show, but you can text 435-339-0321 to chime in, and we'll also try and keep an eye on the YouTube chat if you want to chat there as well. But we're glad that you're listening, however you may be doing so. And today is a day that, we talked about the Jared Calhoun news yesterday. It was our entire show, just giving our reactions, going through obviously a lot of the reactions from the text line. You guys had a lot to say about the departure of head coach Jared Calhoun, some of the worries of the fan base. Are the players going to stay? Who's going to be the next head coach? A few names got thrown around. And so Eric and I, over mostly today, I didn't dive into it much yesterday, but today I think I'm 3,000 words deep on a full written, here's like 13 different names I think I came up with for potential names for Utah State. I'll probably end up saying all 13 at some point. Eric, you came up with a list of about 7 or 8. There's some overlap between ours. So I think between us, there's probably something between 15 and 17 unique names. But obviously there was some overlap because you went over your list with me and I was like, yeah, he's on my list and he's on my list. There were a couple that weren't on my list that you brought up that were good candidates, I think, once you went over a couple of them. So we've got a lot of names. We'll each kind of present maybe one is maybe our lead favorite. I don't know exactly what I would refer to this as, but we'll kind of present one that we think, hey, this might be one of the best candidates of all of them. But then we're going to go through a bunch of these. The positives, the negatives, why they might come to Utah State, why they may not come to Utah State, even if they are qualified in our minds and in most fans' minds. So send in your thoughts, your candidates, your reactions to our analysis on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. I know 93015, I think he sent in something. I think it was a Google AI search about potential candidates.
Yeah,
it just showed like Craig Smith. I already looked away from, but it's got.
I just looked at a couple of people who were on our lists.
Yeah,
a few that I wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole. But I don't know how this was generated, but some of it from I guess other reports that are out there. But,
yeah.
So we'll get into that. But love to get your thoughts too. Like who would be your candidates if you've been looking into this? If you've been doing your own research. Anybody that you would like to see at the helm at Utah State. That's going to be much of this first hour. 435-339-0321. That's the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. Let us know who you think those candidates could be, or agree or disagree with some of the candidates that we throw up there too.
To clear the deck a little bit on the text line, 8968, saying, I know this is late and you're off the air. Like I said about other departing coaches and players, I wish them no ill will. They are gone and not in my scope. Therefore, I don't wish them anything. They are gone. And then 0694 bring up a point that we will have to get into later, and it's about retreads. And 0694, a lot of great information. Don't have time to get into it now, but bringing up Thad Mata, I think is how you say his name, was a retread of sorts at Butler, had success, eventually came back to Butler, and I think is still the head coach at Butler. If I recall, he was I did a deep dive on that as well. So, and that was one of the names that came up. So, but I appreciate you helping us out there with that information. So we will be going over that. So thank you, 0694.
Thad Mata is still at Butler.
Yeah, still a head coach, and it's not necessarily gone particularly well. 2444 saying, I enjoyed hearing Cam Walker explaining today in his interview with Scott Gerard how much the current players are involved in the process of selecting candidates for a new coach. And that will increase our odds of retention. As far as candidates, I think my top choice would still be Craig Smith. But another guy I think that would do well at USC would be Tim Miles.
That is the one that I wouldn't touch with the 10-foot pole.
Yeah,
about 10 years ago, or even 8 years ago, I was a Tim Miles fan. And I would have liked to see him come here. Craig Smith isn't part of his coaching tree. Tim Miles eventually went to Nebraska. Well, he had success at Colorado State. Went to Nebraska, didn't work out. There was an opening at the time, and he was one of the candidates that we had kind of talked about. He didn't land here. He ended up at San Jose, and he just has never really had success at San Jose. Granted, he hasn't had a lot of resources or fan support, so
I just
it's kind of a couple strikes against him that are not really his fault.
I can understand where there was some excitement when he took San Jose to 21-14. He I think he won Coach of the Year. He had Player of the Year. Pretty much the only time in the last decade the Player of the Year hasn't been on the first or second place winning team, and it was because San Jose, of all schools, finished fifth.
Yeah,
at least I think I remember the finishing fifth. But 21-14, there were some impressive aspects there. But Tim Miles had a losing record at Colorado State. His best season was 20-12. That was his best season. He had a winning record in Nebraska by 2 wins. He was 116-114, and he has a 62-104 record at San Jose. He's won 10 games in a season twice in 5 tries.
Yeah.
I just don't see the appeal. I get the whole thing, and there are coaches on my list that are, their whole thing is overperforming in ideal situations, but Tim Miles doesn't even fit that bill. He's not been successful in really any way at San Jose, was barely considered successful at Colorado State. He had a 19-win season and a 20-win season, and was successful kind of a couple of times at Nebraska, but was just generally mediocre. I just don't see the appeal. Not to try and smack down 2-4-4-4. I just happen to heavily disagree with both of your suggestions.
Yeah, same. Yeah, because I've seen that pop up in a few places, and I'm like, no.
Yeah, so let's get into...
Not anymore.
Yeah, let's get into the coaches that we like. And Eric, I'll let you start with yours. We did compare notes before now, so we're not going to overlap with our presentation here. But let's start with your lead. There are other guys on your list, but who's kind of the first guy that you're turning to? If you had a list, who's the first guy you're calling?
Okay, so the first one on my list that my first call would go out to is Flynn Clayman. He's head coach at High Point. Pulled off that upset, an exciting win for them. But beyond just exciting how they got that win, it was Wisconsin, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Wisconsin. They nearly beat Arkansas in the second round.
Yeah, and he was preaching in the postgame a lot of the things that we've heard here and a lot of other mid-major programs, how hard it is to schedule. And so he gets it. He understands the plight of a mid-major program. He got his team to the NCAA tournament, won an NCAA tournament game. But beyond that, it goes deeper as to why I think he's my number one candidate. This is a guy who played at Colorado State. He also played at Troy for a year, but he coached at Southern Utah, and he was there for several years. That's where he met his wife. Incidentally, his wife is on the coaching staff at High Point as well, who also went to the NCAA tournament. So Wes Brooks could probably use her services on his coaching staff.
Would he be worried about getting replaced by her?
It's a 2-for-1. Now, she wasn't the head coach. She was
she's not the head coach? Oh, she's an assistant.
Yeah, she's an assistant. So Flynn Clayman and his wife met while at Southern Utah. Certainly they understand the state. They understand the dynamics here.
He was even an interim coach at SEU for 3 games.
Yes, he was. And before he became the head coach. He's cheap. His salary is not really that high at High Point. So the Aggies could get him and not have to overspend that buyout money that they're getting from Cincinnati, so they could use more of that on roster building. So he is probably the coach of highest priority for me. I know South Florida is also interested in him because they just lost their coach to Providence. So he is in demand. There's probably going to be a bit of a bidding war to try to get him. But I like that he has the connections to the state of Utah. He's coached in the state. He would be familiar with Utah State. and its fan base and its potential as it moves into the Pac-12.
Yeah, and I think that's something that is becoming more and more attractive in a coaching candidate. It became more and more attractive in an athletic director and like president candidate for Utah. They've gone with, outside, outsiders, so to speak, with an AD, with coach, with all that. When it came to getting the last AD and the last president, they found people that had connections to Utah State. Now,
to the state of Utah.
Yeah, to the state of Utah. And I think now they didn't go out and find just somebody who only had a connection. Maybe they weren't as qualified. They went after somebody who was qualified and had the connection to the state of Utah.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be like two Utah states, because Cam Walker didn't have like a specific Utah State connection. It was mostly to the state of Utah. But they found someone who has some connections to this state, or at least to this area, because I think he was a southern Idaho native, but still, it's...
Spent time at Utah Valley.
It's the Mormon corridor.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Yep.
So he has that connection, but it was also qualified. If you just removed his Utah connections, there's some qualifications.
Right.
And so I like that with Klayman is that he has both of those. You're not just, this isn't Tim Miles where he has some connections, but like is he qualified? Like, you're not just going after a guy for the ties, you're going after someone who's qualified, and it's a bonus that they have the connections. That's one reason why I actually really like Klayman as well, is that connection.
Yeah, we've had this discussion before with these different positions, the university president, the AD, and I think it follows with coaches as well. The highest priority is the best available candidate. I know there's a lot of folks here that are like, we need to find someone to bring them home, someone who understands the culture and they'll be here for a long time. And I get that. Believe me, I do, especially after what happened with the other university president and AD. But it shouldn't be like mutually exclusive to the other. If you can find a great candidate who also has connections to the area, then you're really hitting a home run there.
Yeah.
Potential. And so that's what I really like about High Points Klayman, that he's a great candidate. He plays really interesting. He coaches really interesting basketball, high possessions, high usage, lots of 3-point shots, high activity. So he's a successful coach. He won in the NCAA tournament. And by the way, he has connections to the state of Utah, which would help keep him here potentially for a little bit longer.
Yeah, they ranked third in the nation in points per game, 89.7 points per game. Now, some of that is had the 23rd fastest paced offense. Their average possession was 15.9 seconds. They're leaving almost half the shot clock on there before they take a shot, but they were 62nd still in Ken Palm offensive efficiency, which for coming from a one-bid conference, if you can get into the top 60, almost 62nd, you can get up there. That's pretty impressive. With the level of talent that you're usually working with and with the level of opponent that you're usually playing, where you're not getting as much credit for putting 90 points on a team that ranks 242. Their defense was solid, 142nd, but this will be familiar to Aggie fans with this year's team. They ranked 8th in defensive turnover percentage. They turned opponents over all the dadgum time.
Yeah.
They also protected the ball, 4th in their own turnover percentage. 12.8% of the time, which is insane. Protecting the ball at an insane rate. Rebounded decently well. One thing that I pay attention to a lot when watching mid-majors against high majors is, can you rebound the ball against them?
Yeah.
Utah State got murdered on the boards by Arizona. When I was watching High Point against, Wisconsin and Arkansas.
Yeah, the size differential is the biggest gap.
There was a bit of a struggle, but I thought they were doing all right at times. Not fantastic, not dominating the boards, but doing all right. They had some players who go out there and get a board against these guys. And so those are the things that you want to see is like, can a guy coach a team to have efficient offense, effective defense? Can they rebound well? Do they protect the ball? Do you have something about your defense that can make you elite? They get tons of steals. So that's something that makes me really like Flynn Klayman. He's been part of High Point's resurgence. They're on 3 straight years of 27-plus wins. He was an associate head coach for them in the 2 years under Alan Huss. Alan Huss leaves to, where did he go to? Creighton. He's now the head coach at Creighton. Mm-hmm. He left to become the head coach in waiting at Creighton, is now the head coach. But Klayman took the team to newer heights. I think high point there, so they win 27, 29, and then 31 this year. And they win an NCAA tournament game this year where they didn't win one last year when they went to the tournament. And they were the only mid-major double-digit seed, I think, VCU was an 11 seed. So they were the highest seed, highest number, lowest, however we're supposed to refer to that.
Right.
The lowest seed to win an NCAA tournament game as a 12 seed. So that was something that was really great for High Point. So there's a lot of reasons to really like that.
So who's your number one candidate?
So I like Todd Phillips for a number of reasons. I don't know if he'd be a home run hire, but there's a lot of things that I like him. I think him and Clayman, like, for very similar reasons. Success and Utah ties. Todd Phillips was a longtime Salt Lake Community College, won a JUCO national title, went to the, JUCO tournament, their NCAA tournament equivalent, the JUCO ranks, went to that several times, was top 3 in their conference every single year, developing good players there. Then he moves to Utah Valley, was an assistant coach there under Mark Madsen as they kind of rebuilt the program after Mark Pope left. And then Mark Madsen left and Todd Phillips took over. There was another kind of rough year one as he went 16-16 in year one. But then even though after a 16-16 season, he lost like 3 of his top 4 guys, rebuilds, had the WAC player of the year. Like, he had 3 guys on his 2024-25 season that transferred to a power conference team. He had Carter Welling go to Clemson, the WAC player of the year, whose name I suddenly forget. It's in my notes somewhere. He went to Iowa State, and then he had Tanner Toolson. He transferred to TCU. So he had 3 guys leave his team that were power conference transfers. And he rebuilt after that and came back, went 25-9 again. Yeah. So he won a regular season title, lost 3 players that got poached away by power conference teams, rebuilt his program through the portal and through his own roster. Because actually his 2 best players this year were on his roster last year. So he hung on to a couple of guys, although they were like the 5th or 6th guys in the rotation. So he developed them, turned them into his better players. He did pick up a couple of Utah State transfers, but picked up transfers from elsewhere. Also picked up a JUCO guy, who helped him, who's a big 6'10" center, gave him some size inside. And then he wins the regular season title yet again. And there was a whole lot of distractions for his team they had to deal with, whether or not they were on TV, the WAC having it completely out for their program. And they still win the regular season. It's not as impressive this year with kind of the state the WAC was in, but still won the regular season. Dang near made the NCAA tournament. That's kind of the one thing that kind of goes against Todd Phillips is back-to-back regular season titles, but didn't win the conference tournament title. But I like the combination.
Isaac Davis lob play gone wrong is the only way that kept him out.
Yeah, basically. That would have sent it to overtime, so they still would have had to win in overtime. But yeah, they were that close. They were about 1 inch of Isaac Davis's standing reach closer to having a better chance of making the NCAA tournament. So the combination of success, because like Jared Calhoun, his whole thing was success at the Division II level, then doing some good things at Youngstown State, and now Todd Phillips at Slick, at UVU, the Utah ties, the ability to rebuild a roster after having it ravaged by the portal.
True.
In a couple of different ways, because in 2024-25, a lot of it was through the portal. He did have some guys that he developed because he's done both. He's developed guys on his roster, and he's also brought in guys through the portal. So he's done a mix of both. And so I think that makes it him, I think, an attractive coaching hire for the Aggies.
We got a lot more on our list to get through. You may have some that are on your mind as well. Love to get your thoughts on the ones we're presenting as some of our favorites. Maybe you've got some differing opinions. 435-339-0321 on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. We do need to take a timeout, but we'll get to some of the other guys that we've been able to research and look at who may be possible candidates. This isn't because we've heard rumors that they're on the list or they've submitted their resumes. These are just guys that we've done the research on that we think would make sense or could make sense as the next head coach at Utah State.
All right, we'll be back with that and all those names coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and also streaming online at YouTube. The Fan KLGN is where you can find us there. And so we've gone over kind of our top two candidates, Flynn Clayman at High Point, Todd Phillips at Utah Valley. These are both coaches that are attractive for similar reasons, where they've had success where they're at, kind of short-term in both cases, and I think that's where there's a little hiccup. Is like, okay, Todd Phillips has 2 seasons of going 25-9. Flynn Clayman has 1 season ever of being a head coach. Technically, he coached 3 games at SUU as an interim back in like 2023, but 1 season as a full-on head coach. So like we have 3 combined seasons of head coaching experience between our top 2 candidates, which is a little worrying. Like, are they flash in the pan type guys? Can they actually sustain the success? Who knows? But we have 3 seasons of those guys all knowing how to build a roster in the transfer portal era, in the NIL era, and they've both done it well in those 3 seasons. So it's something that goes in favor of those guys.
Yeah, let's get to some of your texts, some of your reactions to our initial candidates that we've thrown out there. 8632, follow the dang formula. Enough with this Craig Smith, Sundance Wicks, Todd Phillips, and Tim Miles talk. It's not happening unless you want to kill USU basketball, no matter how bad Jim Lobb wants Craig Smith.
I don't necessarily think that Sundance
We didn't talk
Wicks
about Sundance Wicks.
Sundance Wicks, his name has been tossed around a lot. But
it has? Well, let me ask this, 8632, what is the formula? When you say follow the dang formula, what is the formula that you think should be followed? And that's not a shot. I'm just curious. Like, for you, like, what do you think the formula has been for Utah State that they have followed?
Yeah. Well, I think the formula, I won't speak for 8632, what their opinion is, but for me, the formula has been go out there and get a head coach who has been successful. In Jared Calhoun's case, it was kind of relative success, but successful in their sphere. Craig Smith was successful at South Dakota. Danny Sprinkle was successful. Ryan Odom was successful. And, obviously, again, Jared Calhoun was a bit relative, but still was an up-and-coming head coach and had success at the D2 level. So, like, it wasn't that Youngstown State was his only thing on his resume. So, for me, like...
Yeah, and if that's the formula, which I agree with, which I think they have followed, I agree with that as well. That would be when I look at the candidates, that is pretty much the formula that I have used to examine who I think should be the next head coach at Utah State.
And I would say that Todd Phillips fits the formula.
Yeah, I don't know why you would throw him out.
Like, I get having Craig Smith, Sundance Wicks, Tim Miles, because, like, Sundance Wicks, again, you're trying to fit him into that Jared Calhoun relative success, but I think he still had a losing record or close to a losing record in back-to-back seasons. He had a losing record in his first season. I can't remember if they had a winning. They were right on the edge if they did get a winning record. And, Tim Miles...
Yeah, there's some things about Sundance Wicks I like.
Yeah.
But he hasn't really proven yet that he can consistently build a program. I think he's trying to build a program, but I don't think he's built the program yet.
Yeah, you want somebody like Utah State is in the position where they can go out and they can limit their candidate pool to people who have had success. Not, we think they will have success because of such and such reasons that aren't number of 20-win seasons, number of conference championships, all that. It is... We think they'll have success because they have proven they can have success based on their history. And that, to me, is the formula. 9315 with the text, Eric, did you purposely do that High Point high on your list? It was really hard to not do High Point, like, what's the word? Puns. It's really hard. And I'm sure people who cover High Point athletics have the whale of a time.
Oh, I'm sure.
Trying to either make more unique High Point puns or trying to avoid and just unintentionally stumbling face first into them all the time.
He had a couple of the texts. Tim's a long miles away from coach of USU. He would not make USU for winning. And what is a buyout for High Point? I'm not exactly sure, but he is under contract. They did an extension with him through 2030, 2031.
Yeah, I think he signed an extension like a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it was in February.
Was it February? I thought it was like early March.
But his salary is not that much.
Yeah, it's not going to be a massive buyout. And I know there was also the rumor that like there's a clause about, there being, a less buyout if he goes and coach somewhere in Utah, or maybe specifically Utah State. There's no way for me to verify that because High Point is not subject to any public records requests. I checked. I was going to look.
You were going to act on those rumors and verify.
That. But High Point is a private university, and as such, they are not. They do not have to respond to public records requests. So you just have to be like, all right, somebody has to report it, leak it somehow. And as far as I know, I haven't seen one or haven't looked at one. So, yeah. And there's also another coach who I think we don't know their buyout yet, who recently signed a contract extension. That's another name on our list that both of us had on our lists. 8968 saying, Scotty G said on his program this morning that his top candidate was Coach Smith. He left once and rather abruptly saying, go Aggies, as going out the door.
Look, it seems like Craig Smith is a very polarizing figure because we have people on this show, and I've seen it online, where we're like, Craig Smith should be the first call you make. And others are like, heck no, stay away from that guy.
Yeah. Well,
and because he went to Utah, he kind of did the Aggies dirty where I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. He's telling John Hartwell, I'm not going anywhere. And then the next day he's on the Utah campus like, I'm so happy to be here. What a great day.
Yeah.
And no mention of his time at Utah State and what he just did. So it was like weird. But beyond that, like he struggled at Utah. Like he struggled to navigate transfers and NIL, couldn't quite figure it out. And since he got let go, like he hasn't like pursued other, or at least landed. I don't know how much he's pursued, but he hasn't landed any other head coaching jobs.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a red flag.
Unless he's like laying in wait he was deliberately trying to wait for the Utah State job to open up again. The fact that he has not been able to land another job, like that is a red flag. Like we talk about why Gary 2.0 didn't work, and they say, oh, he's like washed up, or, people throw out accusations, some of which we don't need to go over those kind of accusations, but like the fire, the competitive fire, we kind of use that term, like it just wasn't there. Is it still there for Craig Smith? And I'd argue him not getting a head coaching job.
He's young enough there he should. Yeah. He should have that fire.
Like Gary Anderson should have had it. He wasn't like super old when he came back.
No.
And so like Craig Smith not getting another head coaching job like immediately, like again, the Cincinnati head coach had a job like 3 days after he got fired, it felt like.
Yeah,
like
the ink was barely dry on the firing notice.
Yeah. So I guess now is kind of a good time to go over this. We'll take a quick detour. We've got a couple of texts coming in on the subject as well. So I did the dive. And mind you, there's not really a database of this kind of stuff. Like who's had a second stint with the university. You either have to know it, find somebody who does know it, or in my case, bully an AI model to feed you as many cases that it can find. And I went with that third one because, believe it or not, I don't know the coaching histories of 366 Division I college basketball programs. So I came up with 7, although there's actually an 8th. 9 through 5 actually put one in there yesterday that didn't show up in my AA model. So that's where I need to emphasize that this is probably an incomplete list. I had to bully it from 2 up to 7 because it gave me 2. And I was like, I know there are more than that because I can think of, give me more. So I bullied a computer this morning. That's what I did.
And who'd you come up with?
So we got a couple that I guess kind of worked out. Sean Miller at Xavier. First stint, 2004-2009. 5 seasons. Went 120-47. That's a 72% win percentage.
Solid.
Left for Arizona. Eventually that tenure petered out. Comes back to Xavier in 2022. 3 seasons. Went 65-40. He went to 2 NCAA tournaments with Xavier. Didn't win any conference titles, but still 2 NCAA tournaments. Winning record, 62 winning percentage. Like not as high as the first, but I guess it kind of works out. But then he goes off and runs off for Texas.
Yeah,
that's where he's at now.
Yeah.
So he buggered off after the second stint too. So I don't know if that counts as working out because he did the exact same thing as the first time after an even shorter tenure. Richie McKay is the only other one I could really find out that I guess kind of worked. He coached at Liberty for 2 seasons from 2007 to 2009. He went 39-28. It was all right. He went, I think, 16-16 one year and a 20-plus win season the next year. He goes off to be an associate head coach at Virginia until 2015. Comes back to Liberty and has had a whale of a tenure for Liberty so far. He's at 7 regular season titles in 8 seasons across the ASUN and Conference USA.
Yeah.
4 conference tournament titles. He's 259 and 114 in his second stint. He's at almost 300 wins when you include his first stint just at Liberty. I don't know if that counts, though. 2 decent-ish, 1 mediocre season, 1 decent season, leaves for a while, comes back, and then becomes your legendary head coach. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah.
But it's there. It is there.
Yeah. Okay.
Then you have Joe Scott. He went 51 and 63 in his first tenure, so he wasn't even that successful. He did win a regular season championship in the Mountain West with Air Force of all teams. Then he came back in 2020, and, well, we know how this latest stint went. It didn't go particularly well.
Not good.
46 and 123. David Leitao at DePaul. I butchered his last name. He went 58 and 34 over 3 seasons. Left, came back, went 69 and 112. Thad Matta, we mentioned him, 24 and 8 in 1 season at Butler. So 1 season. Left, came back. He is their current head coach. He has a 63 and 69 record in 4 seasons. Steve Prohm, I actually had the pleasure of meeting him this year. Murray State head coach, 2011 to 2015, had some fantastic seasons. Wonderful run for Murray State. They go 104 and 29 in his 4 seasons. NCAA tournament appearances, conference tournaments, all the works. He went back from 2022 to 2025, went 45 and 52. Sub 500 record. Don't think he had a winning season in his return. Joe Dooley at East Carolina, 4 seasons, was a little above 500 in those 4 seasons, came back, had a sub 400 win percentage. And then 9315 brought up Quanzo Martin at Missouri State. And I looked him up, and he's currently their head coach, but he's not been successful in his second tenure either. I closed the window. Oh, no, never mind. I have it. First tenure, first season, he was rebuilding a program and went 11 and 20, but then he went 24 and 12, 26 and 9, left, came back, went 9 and 23 2 years ago, 16 and 18 this season. Which I guess improvement, but still a losing record in his second tenure. So when I talk about just having a blanket policy of no returning head coaches, the vague knowledge of these kind of stints and hearing about some of those like Joe Scott and some of these others, just knowing that second tenures never work and knowing a little bit more about football, but knowing how some of those gone in football. It's this kind of stuff that is why, as good as Craig Smith was, and as much as I liked his first tenure, as much as I like Craig Smith as a person, and knowing that memories of his tenure at Utah State are well remembered and with good reason. This data, this stuff, it says right there, all that. That's why I say no. Blanket no. Heck no. I know he's been a good coach. But for this reason alone, this stuff, this is why I say no.
Let's get through a couple quick texts before we hit another timeout. I'm going to try to jump around and get those that are specific to Craig Smith since we're on this topic. 3994, first-time texter. Thanks for chiming in on the text line. I'll play devil's advocate for Craig because I think it is going to happen. I get the gripes about his recruiting, but he still produced 2 NBA role players, and a third was drafted in Shulga. Kiba Keita at BYU was his recruit as well, and let's not forget Raleigh Worcester. Program was also DOA when he got here, and he completely turned it around quicker than anyone thought possible. First, I don't think it was DOA when he got here.
It's mediocre, but the sentiment is potential exaggeration besides the point stands.
Never missed the NCAA tournament while he was there. Imagine that with 10 times the resources he had back then and when he was with Utah. I hope his passion is still there because if he's successful, I don't think he leaves for 20 years.
Yeah, if Craig Smith came back and panned out, fantastic. I'd prefer him over, if we got 2018 Craig Smith, he'd probably be the best coaching candidate, knowing what we know about that tenure. It's this data and all that stuff. And I get the recruiting. I've defended Craig Smith. And this is more ammo. Again, Shulga, helping to develop Merrill. Obviously, he didn't recruit him, but developing Merrill into the player that he became. Mind you, he might have been on that trajectory anyway. He was doing well before Smith got there, but
competitive
still,
guy. But
built a system around him that helped turn him into an NBA player. Brought in Mishketa again, Shulga, Stephen Ashworth. I can't remember if Ashworth was a specific Craig Smith recruit, but if he didn't recruit him, he had to re-recruit him because he came in during Smith's tenure. Was there for his kind of formative, I think, freshman, sophomore, although Ryan Odom kind of perfected, the Utah State version of Stephen Ashworth. But yeah, Raleigh Wooster, all these guys, they were good players that Craig Smith brought in. So, like, he's a good coach. But again, there's kind of a host of smaller reasons. So I appreciate the devil's advocate because there isn't just a one side that we're presenting. I'm just saying this is, to me, overwhelms the potential positives because there is a big risk at trying this retread because you think it works out for all these guys. You think, let's bring Steve Prohm back for Murray State. Didn't work out for all potential reasons.
8632, thanks for the updates there. When I was asking about the formula that you were referring to, formula is such: young, up-and-comer, wins wherever they go, turns around bad programs, uses NIL efficiently. HPU coach, it's High Point coach, has about 5 times the NIL of everyone else in their conference. And then also Craig Smith turned down Oregon State per Aggies 22. I don't know who Aggies 22 is.
That's Brian Phillips. High Point having way more NIL than everyone else in their conference is a potential downside there because it's like, okay, do they win 30 games because they just have way more NIL than everyone else? But Grand Canyon had more NIL than most teams in the Mountain West.
Yeah.
They finished 4th or 5th, obviously decently well, but not the conference wrecking kind of force. So High Point had those, NIL and used it effectively. Now, obviously they have the advantage. Maybe they're playing on easy mode. But I think they did use it efficiently.
Yeah. Considering
they won 31 games and beat a major conference team.
We got more candidates we want to get to. We got more texts that we need to answer. If you want to chime in, we always love to hear from you on the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, 435-339-0321.
Best of Northern Utah voting is open, but not for much longer. It closes tomorrow. And I'm having Eric double check what time, but this is your chance, from today until tomorrow. It's your chance to support the local businesses you believe in, the places you'd recommend to friends and family, your go-to restaurant, your favorite local shop, all these different things. Your vote helps decide the gold and silver winners in more than 200 categories. And you can vote every single day, once per day, in every single one of those 200 categories if you are absolutely dedicated to that.
I don't have a time.
Okay, well, tomorrow.
I'm looking, but
get it done today.
Get your votes in, and if you want to do it tomorrow, better vote early.
Yeah,
before noon.
It started at noon.
I'm sure
March
you'll have
11th.
until like 5 probably, but don't be late.
Yeah, so let's
take advantage.
Let's get through some of our texts. We also have a chat on the YouTube chat. If you're watching on YouTube, the fan at KLGN, Braden Clark saying, to be fair, Sundance is the formula. Sundance Wicks. And again, I don't know if I'd say he's part of that formula that it was.
He may be partially there, but I don't think he's quite there yet.
Yeah, talking about, because, Sundance Wicks, he's young. He's probably an up-and-comer, wins wherever they go. He's maxed out at 18 wins. He did that at Green Bay and once now at Wyoming. Turns around bad programs, maybe in the process of doing that at Wyoming, but I don't know if we've seen that yet.
Yeah.
And Sundance Wicks basically has no NIL to work with, so whatever he's doing efficiently. So,
True.
There are things, and I get people liking Sundance Wicks, but
he's starting to lose players, too. There's some players on his roster that have already announced they're headed to the portal.
Yeah. 8632 saying, I'm the biggest anti-Craig Smith 2.0 person out there. All his success came from Duryea. These recruits were Duryea products. Sam Merrill, Quinn Taylor, Stephen Ashworth, Diogo Brito, Trevin Dorius. Again, we can debate
but
exactly.
He also got a few really good ones himself.
Yeah,
so.
we can debate just how much, Craig Smith's first tenure was other coaches, recruits, or whatever. He took the recruits he had, developed them into the best versions of themselves in most cases, brought in his own good recruits, and did a good job. But we got to get through some of these texts as well. We can't opine too much on these. 1623 saying, I love the Big West Conference. Lots of great mid-major teams over there that I love to watch. One name I've always thought can work out here in Logan is Russell Turner, head coach at UC Irvine. Eric may or may not have him on his list.
He is on my list.
I'm pretty sure they've come to the Spectrum 1 or 2 times in the last 2 years. Not sure if he's already been mentioned, but certainly a candidate in my book. I should have finished the rest of the text because, I guess he's not been mentioned, but he's on the list. He's a little further down the list, but he is on the list for Eric. And I think they came here once. I'd have to double check, but that sounds familiar. I know they've played UC Irvine.
One more about Craig Smith, 5452, saying no to Craig Smith. If he were hired, would Mason transfer? He transferred away from Utah after Smith made his way down there like a thief in the night.
I think Mason Falsov transferring to Utah State had a lot more to do with the fact that I think he had some connection with Ryland Jones. And I don't know, that was kind of a weird situation where he commits to Utah, then doesn't ever go to Utah, comes to Utah State. I don't know. It was kind of a weird situation that I don't necessarily know all the details of.
Yeah.
I don't think he transferred away from Utah because of Craig Smith.
2947, here's an off the wall, but perhaps smart idea. Whoever the new coach is, just make it part of the terms that they have to include a local Cache Valley longer shot as an assistant. Then see how they develop and study under that coach. Once that coach leaves, the assistant can't step into the head coaching role. Some succession planning. Try your hand at J.C. Carroll or Spencer Nelson as an assistant. See how they do for a couple of years. And if they're ready to step up into the head coaching role, crazy idea, but worth a thought. I know Spencer was an assistant before under Tim, but I think he was still a very good coach despite Tim's failings.
I'm not a fan of giving somebody a handout to be an assistant coach. I feel like if you're good enough to be an assistant, you should have to earn that. Because if you're not a good assistant, you just give a handout to somebody, that can be a detriment to your program.
But if there's a former Aggie who wants to and is willing to put in the time and effort and are trying to be at that level, like Quinn Taylor has been down at Salt Lake Community College for a long time. I don't know where he is now.
Yeah.
But if there are former Aggies that want to get into that, then you don't just give it to them, but if they show that they're worth their salt, then if there's a chance to have a local guy, a former alum who played in the arena and understands it, that's going to help with recruiting. So I get that, but they have to earn it just like anybody else on that staff needs to earn it.
Yeah. 1818 saying, who do you think the 3 player leaders for USU's interview committee? That was what Cam Walker said is they have 3 players kind of leading that. My guess is it's Mason Falslev, Carson Templin, and I couldn't get a definitive guess on who that third player is, but you're looking at Adlan Elmine, maybe Jordy Barnes, where like Carson, Mason, and Jordy are like the 3 like most likely to stay for their Aggie ties. So, but Mason and Carson being on the court leaders is probably your top 2. I don't know, kind of pick a third, whoever you think your favorite is.
Yeah. I mean, I think it would be great if Adlan is involved in that. It might help keep him around.
Yeah, you'd like to keep him around. 2305 saying maybe you should look for a coach at a program that's successful below us, has some extra players who can play at this level, who can bring them to him. Yeah, find a coach who's got some players with eligibility that can come to Utah State. Worked with Danny Sprinkle. Worked pretty dang well.
Absolutely.
Well, Jared Calhoun managed to do that without bringing any players over. But still, it's something that would probably come up in the interview process. Who can you bring with you?
3288. A candidate I'd love to dive into a little bit more is Steve Smiley. Was an assistant under Ray for a few seasons. Now head coach of Northern Colorado. Has a pretty good winning record coaching the lower levels. Okay, I'll have to look into that one.
I wasn't as familiar with him. 2965 then saying, I think Sam Merrill was a Stu recruit, not Tim.
Well, Tim was on the staff.
Yeah,
it was part of the deal.
The point of that when you're talking about Craig Smith is that he wasn't a Craig Smith recruit.
Yeah, he was gifted.
So whether he was Stu or Tim, that's it kind of ends up being beside the point. But yeah,
we got a lot more candidates to get through.
We got to speed through some of them.
So we'll take a time out here on the Full Court Press. We'll try to get to a few more. We'll spill this over into the next hour. We got other big stories to get through. So stay tuned. Stay with us here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM, The Fan.
Napa Auto Parts has batteries, headlights, wiper blades, all on sale and in stock now. They got locations from Preston all the way down to Providence. You get Chemical Guys car wash and detailing kits for only $49.99. Air fresheners, shop towels, seafoam, and more. Again, at your locally owned Napa Auto Parts locations. And somebody drop into our YouTube text chat saying, Danny Sprinkle was my coach at Cal State Northridge.
Nice.
So let's call back to one of the previous Aggie head coaches. But let's look at, I think, one name that's popped up a lot with Utah State head coaching vacancy is Eric Olin. crossed paths with the Aggies a couple of times at UC San Diego when he came into the Spectrum and won a game.
Yep.
He had a very good 12-year tenure at UC San Diego, went to New Mexico this past season, had them up top 50 in KenPom, a great team, runner-up in the regular season race for the Mountain West. And I think for a lot of those reasons, he looks like a really good coaching candidate for a lot of reasons. He's one of the few that can boast a good offense and good defense on our coaching list. A lot of them are usually kind of good one way or the other. But his buyout, currently $2.65 million, goes down to $2.0 million and change on April 1st. That's basically half of Utah State's Calhoun buyout money that they're throwing in one go, money that I think they'd like to use on player retention and next year's roster. And you're going to use half of that just in getting a coach out of his contract. I think that's the biggest obstacle. As great of a candidate as he seems like, that's kind of a high price.
Yeah, it's going to be a high price to get him. I don't know that. I mean, New Mexico would make a run at him to keep him.
Yeah.
So it would be hard to pry him away. He's got a pretty good situation going at New Mexico.
Yeah, like on 3, they did their kind of straw poll of coaches, like who has the best, which school has the best head coaching job. New Mexico ranked above Utah State.
Yeah.
So we got to keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, big venue, great fan support, a rich basketball tradition. I'd love to get him, and you'd hope that maybe he would bring some of his freshmen with him.
Yeah, everyone's like, bring Jay Call with you. But I know Bullion may or may not have. He's trying to get a second year, but yeah, if you get like those two, that would be pretty nice.
I think that would be really intriguing to get Eric Olin. I just think it's going to be too hard, or too expensive.
Yeah, it's a long shot.
I think there are other candidates you could spend your money on more wisely.
Yeah, it's Utah State can argue that it is an upward move, or like maybe not so much a lateral move, but kind of like split level. You go up like half a step into the living room, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it might be hard to convince him, and it's a high price anyway. So like, again, while he is a very justifiable name to put on the candidate list, there are just some obstacles. I think there's just some other fantastic candidates as well. And we're going to go over those. We're a little bit later getting into those than we wanted to be. But stick with us in this next hour as we begin the hour. We're going to go through as many of these names we can get through, our analysis of these coaches. We'll get to that next here on the Full Court Press on The Fan. Welcome back into the Full Court Press. Jason Walker, Eric Frandsen here with you on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on the 1069 The Fan mobile app, and streaming online on YouTube. The Fan at KLGN is where you can watch us live as we discuss coaching candidates for Utah State. They've lost Jared Calhoun, but they're going to have another head coach at some point. So we'll see who it is. We went over kind of Todd Phillips, Flynn Clayman, and then kind of at the end we talked about Eric Olin.
We talked about Craig Smith.
Craig Smith. So
Tim Miles.
A little bit of Sundance Wicks, talk about the formula. But we kind of had Todd Phillips and Flynn Clayman as kind of our top two candidates, kind of a big no from us, or at least from me. I'm not going to speak for you, but my opinion is you're not huge on rehiring Craig Smith either.
I have concerns. I'm not adamant. Like, I know it's kind of polarizing. You're either in one camp or the other. And
Eric's a coward in taking the middle ground here. I just say no.
I lean more towards no, just because I think there are other interesting candidates available. But I also don't want to just whitewash and forget the success that he had here. Like, he had success at Utah State, and I know there's a lot of fans that pine for having that back. So I get that. I don't think it should be denied or forgotten. But as Jason detailed last hour, there are grave concerns about coaches who had success at one point in their career and came back, and that success their second time around was not replicated. So there are concerns there. But some of the other coaches that we have in mind that could be among the candidate pool for Utah State, some that are kind of high on your list, Jason.
So there are a few. I know one that we both had. I got to find my notes again here. It was the UNC Wilmington head coach, Takayo Siddle.
Yes.
And there was a lot to like about his tenure, although there are some, I don't know if you want to call them red flags, about whether or not he would even want to stay at Utah State. Where do I have him on my notes? There's somewhere
while you
here.
Search for those, I'll share some of my thoughts on him. A couple different. Well, he had an NCAA tournament bid last year. Took his team to the NIT this year. Back-to-back 27-win seasons. So he knows how to coach. He knows how to get his teams to victories. Its salary is not too hefty. About $850,000 from what I was able to gather.
Yeah, I know he's recently signed a contract extension, but even with that, I don't think the buyout's really that much.
Yeah, so he's had some recent success here these last few seasons. My concern for him is that he's pretty deep entrenched into North Carolina.
Yeah, he is a North Carolina guy through and through. Let me walk through this for you. You've already run into this, but for the listeners. So he was born in Eden, North Carolina. I don't know where he played his high school ball. I didn't look that up. But he played his college ball at Gardner-Webb, which is in Boiling Springs, North Carolina. He has coached at Gardner-Webb and NC State, and everywhere he's coached has been a North Carolina-based school, including UNC Wilmington, except for 1 year where he coached at the Hargrave Military Academy in Chatham, Virginia, which is 15 miles as the crow flies from the Virginia-North Carolina border.
Yeah.
So he did not venture far the one time.
He's pretty through and through a North Carolina guy.
So that might
be a bit of a challenge to pull him away.
Yeah, I don't know if he wants to leave North Carolina. He was an assistant under, I think it was Kevin Keats was his name, at UNC Wilmington. Keats then went to NC State. Although a couple years into that, Takayo Siddle was brought back to UNC Wilmington to be the head coach after being an assistant there. Fantastic tenure in there, 3 conference tournament titles, I think 2 regular season, 1 conference tournament, 1 NCAA tournament appearances. In 6 seasons, he's won 71% of his games, consistent top 150. Heck, I think if you exclude, like his first season, which was like the COVID, like the kind of first post-COVID or kind of still during COVID. It was the 2020-2021 season where they still played, but Wilmington only played 17 games. It was a weird season for them. They had a month-long break in the middle of their season. He went 7-10, wasn't that great of a season. So if you exclude that, it gets like even better where like he's a consistent like top 130 team. But North Carolina man through and through.
Yeah. So that
you might be looking at Ryan Odom all over again.
Yeah, he might come here, but then he might get homesick, and then, or at least his wife would, and yeah, I just don't know how long you'd be able to hold on to him.
Yeah. I know another name, like we've already kind of mentioned him, Richie McKay. He was the kind of maybe second stint, depending on how you want to count him. Went through all of his stuff. Again, 11 conference tournament titles.
Currently
in 8
at
years.
Liberty.
Yeah, currently at Liberty. Of course, I think he has ties to. Yeah, he coached at Portland State, went to Colorado State in 1998. Funnily enough, he was the successor to Stu Morrill at Colorado State as a head coach. Coached the Rams for 2 years, Oregon State for 2 years, 5 years in New Mexico. Then he goes to Liberty for 2 years as a head coach, then the associate head coach of Virginia, back to Liberty. So he's been on the East Coast for like 20 years.
But very familiar with the Rocky Mountains and the Western United States.
Yeah, the Pac-12, the WAC, or the Big Sky, when he was at Portland State. So familiar with the Western U.S., but he is 60 years old, so I don't know if he's looking to move at this point in his career.
Yeah, I mean, Randy Bennett's making a move, and he's in his mid-60s.
That's true. That's true. So, never say never.
It shouldn't be counted against him, but
it's just trying to read maybe his mind. It's not that you wouldn't hire him because it's 60. It's just like, does he want to?
He's got a pretty good situation at Liberty. Would he want to come back to the West where he's been pretty entrenched there? So I had him initially looking at him, but I crossed him off my list just because his age and just where he's at, just in his career, and frankly, this success he's having at Liberty, and it'd probably be hard to pull him away.
So a few other names. Well, Eric, you had a couple names. I've got one or two I want to go over, but you brought in a couple, including some Big West names.
Yeah, I want to talk about Russell Turner. He's currently at UC Irvine. He's been there for a while. Here's some of the things that I like about him is that he's not a spring chicken either. He's like 56, but he was an assistant at Wake Forest. He was an assistant at Stanford. He was even an assistant at Golden State for a while. But he's been at UC Irvine for quite a while. And in that time, he has qualified for the NCAA tournament 3 times. So one of those was the COVID year before it got canceled.
Yeah.
And 6 times taking his team to the NIT. Again, salary is not going to be that hard. It's under $700,000. But this is a guy who's been at UC Irvine for quite a while. He's had regular success. He knows how to win, knows how to build a program and maintain success. And so familiar with the Western United States as well. I think that's important for recruiting and going into the future Pac-12. So that's another one that is on my list that could be interesting to come here. Might, because of his age, provide a little bit more stability, less likely to jump after just a few years.
Yeah. So there are a couple names that I ran into. One of these I stole from the Ag Chip from Patrick Mayhorn. His name wasn't on my radar, but the first one that I thought was interesting, and both of these guys kind of fall under that winning in unexpected places type situation. The first is Chris Victor at Seattle. This is a place where I mentioned that on 3 kind of poll of where does your head coaching job rank in your conference. Seattle ranks the 10th out of 12 schools in the West Coast Conference. Oh. This is a place that is not necessarily seen as great for basketball coaches to be there. Chris has gone 101-67 in 5 seasons, though. This year, I think they were like 100 and something. They were like under 110, but outside the top 100. I'm gonna look it up really quick to double check here. They were 113th. And they also had a top 20 defense. And that's the interesting thing about Chris Victor is that he has had some really good defenses. In his 5 seasons, they have pretty much always been top 100. And in this year's case, it was top 20. The downside of Chris Victor, though, is his offenses are not that great. This year it ranked 292nd.
Ooh.
And ranking outside the top 200 isn't necessarily uncommon for him in his tenure at Seattle. In fact, I think he's had 1 season where it did rank inside the top 200. So he needs to work on his offense. His defense is fantastic. Gotta love it. He had the West Coast Conference Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, if you're looking for guys who can maybe bring someone with them, Will Heimbrodt, I think is how you say his name, a 6'7" wing who averaged like 2.5 blocks per game. He's a sophomore, so bring him along. Kind of a terrible 3-point shooter, but somebody, 28.6% isn't terrible, but is not particularly great. So he's kind of one interesting-ish name in that, again, doing good things in a place where you're not necessarily expecting. This next one is the one I stole from Patrick Mayhorn's Andy Newman. He's touted him as one of his favorites to watch. Cal State Northridge.
Yeah, I looked into him. I'd like to get your thoughts on him.
There's things to like. There's things to not like. It must be an acquired taste in some cases. Again, you look at that On3 polls, like where does your head coaching job rank in your conference? I think it was 8th of 11th. Yeah, 8th out of 11 Big West schools. So not a place where you're expecting to win. In fact, when Andy Newman showed up at Cal State Northridge, they had won 23 games in their previous 3 seasons, and they hadn't had a winning season or been to the NCAA tournament since 2009. And so this is when he showed up in 2023. His first season at CSUN, he won 19 games. And he's had back-to-back 20-win seasons. So this is Jared Calhoun at Youngstown State type stuff. That's what he's done there. They play a lightning-quick pace. I think they're like top 5 in pace, one of the quickest teams in the country, and also some really good rebounding numbers. They've had some seasons where they were top in the, close to top in the country in defensive rebounding in particular. Not huge offensive rebounding. They're still good at offensive rebounding, but usually top 20, top 30 in defensive rebounding percentage. So if you like teams that play fast, the offensive efficiency has been a bit questionable for him, but it's not been like horrible. They play fast. They rebound incredibly well. They're going to fly around the court. And a guy who has built up a program that didn't win before he got there, Andy Newman and Chris Victor could be names to at least keep an eye on if you're Utah State.
Since we're looking at the Western United States, let's look at Aaron Grant, currently the head coach at Hawaii. He taken his team to the NCAA tournament twice in his first season there in 2016 and this last season in 2026. So kind of bookending his season or his career at Hawaii. So he's been there for a little while, but he was also an assistant at St. Mary's. Before being the head coach, he was the assistant at Hawaii and kind of reviving that program. Isaac Johnson had a good stint there this last season with him. They had a pretty interesting season. Actually, they got dominated in the NCAA tournament, but got his team there. Again, has some success, knows what it takes to get to the postseason, has done it a couple of times, and could be alluring not to have to travel so much like he does in Hawaii to come back into the mainland and coach a team that has resources and stability like Utah State.
Yeah. One name that came up the other day, we had a texter, and I forget who. Stand up if you recognize this was your suggestion. Justin Gainey at Tennessee. So the name that was brought up, an assistant head coach. So there are 2 assistants that Chris Burgess' name got brought up. He was, I think, previously at least rumored to be a
He's
candidate.
wanted the job for a while.
Yeah, he's coached. He's been an assistant basically everywhere in the state of Utah except for Utah State and I think SCU and maybe Weber State. Okay, like half of them. Utah Valley, BYU, and Utah. He's been an assistant at. Currently an assistant at BYU. So there's, guy with ties to the state of Utah, but not a head coach at the Division I level, or I don't know if he was a head coach at any level. But Justin Gainey was interesting. I mean, the fact that he's at Tennessee, Cam Walker's coming from Tennessee, that's kind of the instant connection you make there. He's 49, I think, so kind of maybe overdue to be a head coach. I think one of the guys on our list is 37 years old. I think that was Clayman. Or maybe there was somebody on my list.
Clayman's not very old.
Yeah, there was somebody on the list that I looked up his age, and he was like 37 years old. It may or may not be Clayman. I'm kind of going off memory there. But Justin Gainey, he was hired at Tennessee, I think, in the late 2010s, but became their associate head coach in 2022. Now, under Rick Barnes, their head coach, he's been there he was the coach 6 seasons prior to bringing in Gainey as the associate head coach. Rick Barnes is still the head coach at Tennessee. So I'm saying there were 6 years before Gainey was the associate head coach. And when Justin Gainey became, took that position, he also assumed the roles of the, kind of your defensive coordinator, so to speak. So in the 6 seasons before Gaines took that spot, the average Ken Pom defensive rank for Tennessee was 53. In the 4 seasons that Gainey has been the defensive coordinator of Tennessee, the Volunteers' Ken Pom defensive efficiency rank has been 3rd, 1st, 3rd, 3rd, and 14th.
Ooh.
Not bad.
That's pretty good.
Not bad. They took a step back this year, a major step back, and they're 14th. But they're in the Sweet 16.
That's still pretty good.
So, and they're still top 15 in the country. So this is a guy who knows how to coach defense. Does he know how to coach offense? Does he know how to be a head coach? Those are big questions. And Utah State has not hired an outside candidate to be, an outside candidate who is an assistant coach to be their head coach. They've not gone that route. I'm wording this deliberately to exclude Tim Duryea. So if we just exclude him anyway, you have to go back to Con Smith. That's how far back you have to go. Where they did hire some assistants a few different times, because I think Rod Tueller, or I don't know if he was an assistant, but he was that was his first time Division I coach. Dutch Belknap, I think it was his first time college head coach, and Con Smith. They kind of did it a bunch back in the 70s and 80s, but since hiring Larry Eustace, they've not really done that except for when they internally promoted Tim Duryea. So they've not really gone to the assistant coach pool in a while. Again, with the one exception, that was an internal promotion, not a hire an assistant coach from without.
Right. Proven success to come and lead the Utah State Aggies. Another name out there, I want to go back to another coach, a sitting head coach who's had success, who's been around a little bit, but not too old. But worry a little bit about where he's from and ability to hold on to him for a while. But that's John Groce, currently at Akron. He was a head coach at Ohio, where he started to have success. He got noticed by Illinois and jumped to be the head coach there. Eventually didn't quite work out, got fired, and then he went to Akron, and he's been there since 2017. But during his stints as a head coach, he has taken 7 teams to the NCAA tournament, including this last year. While he's been at Akron, 6 MAC tournament championships, 2 MAC regular season championships. His salary, $850,000, but he's under contract through 2034, 2035.
That's a long time.
Might be kind of expensive to get him, to buy him out. But that's a guy who has proven track record, who shows that he can recruit and compete and win at a pretty similar situation. It would definitely be a step up going from the MAC to the future Pac-12 and going from the Akron Zips to the Utah State Aggies. But this is somebody who understands how to coach and compete at a high level and even in the big leagues. So John Groce is probably another name to keep an eye on. Yeah, and
I think so. This is a guy who has really stepped it up recently. I think he was on my list, or maybe was on my list when I was looking at coaches last time when they ended up hiring Calhoun, or maybe I was looking at it when Calhoun was maybe going to leave last year. But yeah, he'd won 20 plus games for a while, and in these last 2 years, he's stepped it up. In the NIL era, he's gotten better than where he's been coaching since before the NIL era. And he won a program record 28 games 2 years ago, and then he upped it to win 29 games this year, a new program record for Akron. And in Miami of Ohio in that same conference went 31-0 to start the season, and they got to 82nd in Ken Pom. Akron finished the season at 63rd. So they didn't go undefeated like Miami, but they were on paper in a lot of ways the better team than Miami of Ohio. And that's what John Groce's been doing recently. But yeah, as you said, very much a Ohio Valley and surrounding states type of guy.
Yeah, he's from Indiana, so he's definitely a Midwest guy, and so he's coached at Ohio, Illinois, Akron. So he's in that Midwest base. I mean, that's his core. So getting him out here might be nice to have him as a coach, but you kind of wonder about his ability to stick around.
Yeah.
One other name that maybe more regionally makes some sense, David Richmond. He's a head coach currently at North Dakota State, and 4 NCAA tournament appearances for him. Got a win in the tournament, 3 Summit League regular season titles, 4 tournament titles. He was the coach of the year in 2015 and this last season in 2026. Salary, very easy to take care of. Varying reports on exactly where he's at, but it's a little under $300,000 right now. But North Dakota State is a team that's had some success, has had a pretty successful program, and David Richmond has been at their helm for a while and has been able to take his team to the NCAA tournament multiple times. In fact, has a win in the tournament. Yeah,
so there are a lot of these really solid mid-major coaches that you can pull from. We mentioned Todd Phillips and Flynn Clayman, but there are a lot of good names, guys who have had success with their program for a long time, consistent success at whatever conference. It's going to be a lower conference, and so there's always the worry of, can you translate it to the bigger conference? And there's always that worry, but it's been a workable formula. Like, I know from the mid-major to the high major.
Can you do more with less? Because that's what you're going to have to do when you're at Utah State. You'll have more than you had, but in comparison to other teams you'll be competing against, you'll need to illustrate you can do more with less.
Yeah, that's always kind of the trick with these coaches. That's most of the rest of the names. I had, there's the Eric Conkle from Tulsa. He kind of had a breakout year this year, though it's like kind of his one breakout year. So he's similar-ish in some ways to Flynn Clayman, where it's like he has one good year.
Yeah.
But this was Flynn's first year. Eric Conkle has been doing it a few years at Tulsa. And then
Bob Rickey was one I looked, or excuse me, Bob Rickey. He's at Furman.
Yeah.
But again, he's had a couple of trips to the NCAA. He won a game, beat Virginia as a 14 seed. But I think it's a private institution, so they don't really publicize what he's making.
Yeah.
Some reports suggest he's making around $2.2 million. So that might be a little too much to pull him away.
Yeah, probably a little bit. One last text kind of throwing in another name, 2444, saying, you mentioned Kevin Keats. Could he be a candidate? Former NC State head coach, obviously UNC Wilmington, they went to the Final Four. They had that kind of surprise one where I think they were an 11 seed. They were an 11 seed, and they went to the Final Four before losing to Purdue. That was the same year of Danny Sprinkle at Utah State. NC State was kind of do you call them a Cinderella? I don't know.
An underdog.
They were an underdog, and they kind of felt like it. They also had some fan favorite players. DJ Burns, people really liked him.
Oh big guy.
He was a big guy. A lot of people liked him, so it was a fun story. But that was kind of his one, a year after making that Final Four run, he got fired. So it tells you kind of how his tenure was going overall. But 3 NCAA tournament appearances, a conference tournament championship in the ACC. Tough place to win, NC State, when you're in the conference with powerhouses, blue bloods like Duke and North Carolina. But he would win 20 games. He's about a coin flip to win 20 games in a season. So I don't know, maybe.
Bottom line is, I think there are a lot of interesting candidates out there, and there will be the thing for Aggie fans to remember is that this is a good job. There are going to be good candidates, good coaches who want this job, who will pursue this job hard. There might be some guys that Cam Walker will want to try to pursue himself and try to poach and pull away, and he might have to do some hard sales job on some to consider. But there will be really good coaches who are applying for this job. And I think the other point here is he wants to get this done soon. The portal opens, April 7th?
April 7th. So
if they can get their head coach in place or at least announced by April 1st, that would be massive.
I'll be honest. I think they're going to have narrowed down their coaching search by the end of the week. Don't expect an announcement by the end of the week. That would be fast. But this is going to wind down by the weekend, where I think last year's coaching search took about a week. That's like, if you really buckle down and do a national coaching search, it's taking you about a week and a half.
Yeah. If nothing else, there's a lot of stuff that happens around the Final Four. A lot of coaches, a lot of ADs, a lot of administrators meet and have meetings, and they're all flying in to wherever the Final Four is, which I think is in Indianapolis this year. So a lot of deals are getting done at that time too. So a lot of coaches can say, "Oh, I'm going to meetings to the Final Four."
I don't even know if they're going to wait that long,
and
though,
not realize
because
they're
Final
actually
Four's
hiring another.
The Final
job.
Four is in early April, though, isn't it?
It is. So, but
I don't think they're even going to wait that long.
My guess would be is that they would not. They're going to wait, but they would try to get it done before then.
Yeah.
But if it drags on a little bit, that's probably the place where it gets finalized.
I think they have a head coach. It's April 4th is when those games happen. I think they'll have a head coach announced, press conference, and everything by then.
I would hope so, because there is an immediacy, there is an urgency here to announce who that head coach is for recruiting, to recruit and keep your own guys, and to start preparing for the future.
Yeah. All right, we're overdue for a break. We're quite overdue for a break here. So we're going to take a break. When we come back, we will shift away from this topic. We've gone through as many coaching candidates as we've got. We've gone through our full lists, unless there's a name that I just happen to miss. But if you have any more thoughts, feel free to send them in. We're not going to completely abandon the topic, but we are going to shift over toward the success of the Utah State Gymnastics program. Hear from head coach Kristin White, what she had to say. Eric, you had a chance to visit with her the other day about their upcoming trip to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to compete in the NCAA Regionals and have a chance to go to nationals. So that conversation coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Indoor air in our area can be up to 5 times dirtier than outdoor air, especially during the dry winter months. Dry air keeps dust and allergens floating longer, sending them deeper into your lungs, making sickness more likely. Mountain Valley Heating and Air installs high-efficiency steam humidifiers that use 1 gallon of water with no waste to improve air quality. Call 435-753-5170 for a free in-home air quality assessment from Mountain Valley Heating and Air. Again, that's 435-753-5170. So, Eric, you had a chance to go up to the campus of Utah State, and speak with Utah State Gymnastics head coach Kristin White, along with Isabella Vater.
Yep.
One of the gymnasts, one of their all-round gymnasts. Well, I don't know. They usually don't have too many all-round because it's kind of a difficult. You got to do literally everything.
Yeah, they got a number of them, but
you usually only got 1 or 2 who are competing in the all-round. But Isabella Vater, one of those, says the Aggies had a fantastic season, one of the better in recent memory, just constantly re-upping themselves every week.
Back-to-back Mountain West Conference champions, ranked 26th nationally. They've had consistent high scores as a team, great athletes. Was able to go up and be there as they had the bracket reveal show. And they had to wait until the 3rd bracket before they saw their name called. But it was the bracket they were hoping for. It was the venue they were hoping for. They haven't competed at LSU before, but they're competing against other teams that are nationally ranked, but they're not like the top tier teams. Like, they feel like they can compete with the teams that they're going up against. And after the reveal and the fun atmosphere, watching the athletes celebrate, I had a chance to sit down with Coach White and Bella as they talked about the getting the invitation and what it means for their squad and how they feel about their chances.
Huge accomplishment for them, and then being an automatic bye and going to round 2 is just another great accomplishment, a testament to all the hard work that our women have put in this year, and we're incredibly excited. We were looking forward to going to the LSU region, and so our team was even more pumped to get to go compete at McKee-Mac.
What specifically LSU?
There's just a lot of historic programs that get tremendous fan support, and, they sell out their arena all the time. And so being able to go compete in that environment, I think, will be a great opportunity for our women. And just getting to see elite gymnastics, I think, will be a lot of fun for our team.
So what you're part of the combined, big part of the combined 7 Mountain West regular season, postseason titles, and marquee issue athletics this time. How much does it mean to you to play a part in that?
It's a tremendous accomplishment. I think obviously we have great, phenomenal student athletes, but just the support system that we have here at Utah State, I think, is what makes this place so great. From the fans to the donors to support staff, administration staff, they really invest in their sports here. And so I think it's really exciting for our women to be amongst the elite here at Utah State, and just another incredible opportunity to represent this university.
Coach, your squad and some of your individuals have had your teams and scores this year. And building off of what you already did last year, what's been some of the difference for you and your squad this year after year?
Yeah, I think they're just really connected this year. We preach a lot about our culture and bring in the right people that are going to mesh with what we're doing here at Utah State. And so I think, obviously, that first competition we had at the Best of Utah really set the foundation for the rest of our season. And our team never stopped believing. They had trust, joy. They were together in every moment of the year. And I think that's what's given us a lot of our success this year.
You combine your season high on all 4 events that give you a 197.075, which might be what it takes to advance. So how much hope does that give you that you can potentially get a better season together?
It's tremendous. We've kind of been joking that 197 is where we want to be. And at first, I didn't know if we were going to get there throughout the beginning of the season, but I fully believe this team is capable of going 197, which would be a school record, just over 197. So I think they have the potential to do it. I think they have the motivation to do it, and they're really going to put out the best competition that they can that day.
What's the plan between now and the announcement and when you have to go? How do you guys prepare? What's your schedule like?
Yeah, so normally we do 2 days on, 1 day off. So really, today will be more about resting and recovering since we're going to the LSU Regionals. So we have the entire day off today. But honestly, the messaging and the preparation doesn't change. We're going to do the same preparation that we've done from the beginning of season until now. And our teams are fully prepared. They're ready. They're hungry, coming off 2 back-to-back championships. I know that they're going to be focused on the details because the details are going to be what matters from us going from round 2 to round 3. And I know with that excitement, they'll put the best competition out there.
Just kind of reflecting back on Saturday, you had a season high on 4 when you absolutely needed to. So how much did that suggest how ready the team was together?
Our floor squad has been amazing this season. Honestly, having the lead going into the last rotation and being on floor, I had no doubt that they were going to be able to put it together. And to have that pressure on them and put out the 6 best routines that we've had all year is just, tremendous. All the hard work they put in, they believe and they trust in one another. And so it was really great ending on that event for us this year.
So that's Utah State Gymnastics head coach Kristin White talking about their upcoming trip to Baton Rouge and obviously talking about some of the season so far, and also the goal to trying to get a 197 because that's something that they've been chasing for, I know, a couple of different times when we've talked to head coach. I think when I talked to Amy Smith, I think she might have talked about it too. The previous head coach, just getting a 197. That's for some of these elite top 5 programs, they are getting 197s all over the time, but for Utah State, that's something where they've been working, where this season has been 196 after 196, where a lot of times they have to work their way from like 194s into the 195s, and then maybe you get a 196, and they've just been doing 196 all over the shop this year. So I think that that's something they're capable of. It's just, I guess at this point, it's a question of can they do it?
Yeah. So
or will they do it? Can they do it? Will they do it?
Yeah, they feel like they've got some momentum on their side. They're really excited. They've got great team chemistry. And they're competing against Stanford, who's number 7, Michigan, who's number 10, and North Carolina, who's number 22. And so in order to advance, they need to be within the top 2 to advance. But they're really excited about being there at LSU. It's a great environment, a great history of producing great gymnasts. They feel like it's going to be a great crowd for them, and they really feed off of that crowd. They really wanted that venue over some of the other options that were out there. Oregon State was one. Arizona State was another venue. So those were kind of regionally could have made some sense, but they really felt like the LSU situation was better for them, and they're super excited to go, and they leave next week to compete.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun for the gymnastics program. Again, if you've not been following along, you should be. You should be following along, especially if you love gymnastics, because these are arguably the best athletes Utah State has in their entire athletics department. And they have been successful back-to-back Mountain West championships to close out their Mountain West tenure before they head into the Pac-12. We're going to take a break, and we come back. We've got NCAA tournament, some stuff to talk about. We've not talked about the NCAA tournament. It is happening still, believe it or not. One shining moment has ended for the Aggies, but there are some other teams that are going on. There are no Cinderellas in the Sweet 16, at least in my opinion. There are some who argue otherwise, but we'll talk about that a little bit coming up next here on the Full Court Press. Welcome back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen. Make sure to check out Young Power Sports of Logan. You can score big on big markdowns on motorcycles, side-by-sides, and ATVs from Indian, Fox Racing, Liat, Zebros, Slick Rock, and more. I did not check this to make sure I knew how to pronounce all these brands.
You're doing great.
I mispronounced climb is Klim. I did that already this year. Had multiple people like, it's pronounced climb, Jason. It's like, well, don't spell it Klim. It's like the 90s and everyone put like a Z or in there, all that kind of stuff, or replaced C with K. Or the Southtown Auto Mall, they had to, for decades, remind people, don't forget the E on town when you're spelling out our website name.
That's right.
Can't remember if they're still in business or not. But anyway, my issues with spelling and all that stuff aside, make sure to check out Young Power Sports of Logan. They sponsor our text line, the Young Power Sports Logan text line, 435-339-0321.
Speaking of the NCAA tournament, they're breaking records with viewership. Like, great first round. Opening day was massive viewership on Thursday. As it went in through Sunday, it shattered more records. So it's hard for me to, when a lot of people are going, oh, college basketball is broken. Well, people are tuning in to watch.
Here's the thing. Here's the distinction that needs to be made. Because is college sports broken? Yes. Is it dying? No. That's, I think, the distinction that needs to be made. It is broken, but it is not dying.
College football had great viewership numbers this past year. There are a lot of problems with college football, but people are still tuning in. The same goes with the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, but
it needs some management, needs some help, but people are still tuning in. Now, with the Sweet 16, the absence of any mid-majors, no Cinderella stories, some people are like, yeah, that's a real bummer for the NCAA tournament, while others are saying, well, you just have a bunch of recognized brands that are in the tournament now, and because these are bigger brands with bigger followings, viewership will continue to do very well.
I think the viewership continues to do well, but in a lot of times engagement, hype, excitement, marketability. I mean, a lot of that's still going to be there because if you have the bigger schools, they have the bigger fan bases, they have the more viewers, and that leads to engagement, excitement, and all that kind of stuff. So it's not like it's bad for college sports to not have any mid-majors, but I don't think it's a good thing. Because again, what made March Madness March Madness? Like,
Exciting
again, I went over this earlier, but mid-majors make March Madness. Cinderella runs made March Madness, and you have legislated,
but also game-winning shots. You know, great finishes, regardless of who the teams are.
And we're getting few of those because we're getting more blowouts. So that's one thing that's worth noting.
We didn't have a lot of those
is there are a lot more blowouts than normal. There are a bunch of 100-point games. Some of that is because there's just more scoring these days. But like there's 100-point blowouts. There's just all these things where there are so many blowouts. We didn't see there were some crazy shots. I mean, the Kentucky VCU, was it?
VCU upset North Carolina.
No, but wasn't it the next one? Kentucky was facing somebody. Was it Santa Clara? Somebody. They were facing somebody, and there was like somebody made a shot with like 4 seconds left, and then they hit like a half-court shot to force overtime. I want to say Kentucky was involved in the game, but I can't remember which one.
Was that Kentucky St. John's, and they ended up losing at the buzzer?
Was it St. John's they were facing?
It wasn't Santa Clara.
Well, St. John's was like a 5 seed. What seed was Kentucky? And Kentucky won, I think.
Oh, so you're talking about the opening?
Yeah, the opening round.
Oh, that's right, because that was it was Santa Clara in the opening round. Yes, it was a back and forth in the last 5 seconds.
It was like one of the craziest 10-second. Like that is the kind of stuff that March Madness is built on.
Yes,
those kind of shots. I mean, I was fortunate enough to be in the arena when St. John's hit that game-winning layup to beat Kansas, and kind of that viral moment where St. John's head coach is like didn't even react. He's like, "Oh, it's a game-winning shot. Well, I guess we won." That kind of thing. So, and of course, the Kansas head coach too. He was pretty stoked. I mean, you could kind of tell he did. Was like, "Dang it!" You can kind of see that, but he was still pretty stoic himself. It's like trying to process the emotions of all that all in 1 second, while the St. John's players are like jumping all over each other. You got Patino over there just being like, I guess we won. How nice. I won't even smile.
One thing that was interesting in the first round particularly is, watching games or listening to games on the radio here on the Fan, is that I heard a lot of names of guys who were in the Mountain West at some point. And so the Mountain West, while it only had one team in the conference, it had its fingerprints all over the tournament.
I know, like so many of the best players in the country have their roots in the Mountain West.
Nick Davidson at Clemson, Graham EK at Gonzaga.
I know JT Toppin's been injured, but his team, Texas Tech, is in there.
Yeah. Guy at UCLA who was at New Mexico.
Donovan Dent.
Yeah, Donovan Dent. So there were quite a few guys who, in watching or listening to games, I'd hear their names called. I'm like, oh, that was a Mountain West guy.
Yeah.
That was another Mountain West guy.
Sometimes I'll see names and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, Utah State played them when they were at a different school or something like that. I've had that a few different times where it's
there's not a Cinderella team. There's certainly Cinderella players. I think you could look at guys
I don't know if I'd say that,
who
but
started somewhere in a lower school and have worked their way up. And so the stories that we like to normally have this time of year to highlight teams that are kind of like the surprise team, it's shifting away from that now 2 years in a row where we don't have that Cinderella team. It's kind of shifting to more about the players. And I'm okay with that. To talk about their journey to where they're at now. But it is kind of fun as a country to get behind the underdog.
Yeah.
And you can't really do that this year. Texas is not an underdog. And they're not a Cinderella. They're an underdog seeding-wise, but they're not a Cinderella.
yeah.
So, yes, they have a low seed, and they're still in it, but they're not a Cinderella.
Well, that's the thing. Like when I see on social media, the buzz of March Madness is everyone leading up to the tournament. They're like posting all these memes and Vines and TikToks and all these things being like, oh, that, White 6-foot accountant when he hits 10 threes on your team and busts your bracket on March Madness. Like that kind of stuff is all over the place. That's what people kind of live for with March Madness. And they watch the first round in anticipation of that happening. And they're going to keep watching the first round. People love the opening, weekend, the Thursday, just Thursday through Sunday, where you have 12.5 games that you're watching on Thursday and Friday. And then there's even though you're technically cutting the teams in half, you're still able to go wall to wall on Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
And people are going to keep watching those, and they're keep watching, hoping they're going to keep switching through the games, looking for the upsets and all those different things. But people are going to pretty quickly find out over the next few years, like this year is the second time we've not had a mid-major in the Sweet 16 in the 64-team era. First time was last year. And I bet the third time ever is probably going to happen next year or the year after that. Like we're going to have that keep happening. We're going to have 4 or 5 of those in the next 7-8 years. And I think it's going to slowly drain the madness from March Madness. People are going to stop looking forward to it as much. Are they going to watch? Probably. I don't think viewership's really going to go down. But
no, it won't.
But the spirit of March Madness is going to be drained from it.
Yeah.
People will still be entertained by college basketball. People still love college basketball. They're not going to abandon it because there's no Cinderellas. But it's not going to be March Madness. 9-3-1-5 with a point on that same. The name says it all. Madness with all the upsets and Cinderella to get to the Sweet 16. And yeah, we just don't have that anymore. And we're not likely to see it as much.
We can still have exciting games.
Oh, we can still have like mid-major basketball was still fun this year. The Mountain West was fun this year.
Yeah.
And so college basketball isn't dying. Mid-majors aren't dying. March Madness is just going to be a little less special.
And the NIT will become littered more and more with mid-major programs.
Yeah. Which you'd prefer that not be this consolation prize, but yeah, that may be the way that mid-major basketball goes.
Yeah.
We got to take a break. We'll be back. We'll wrap up the show, though, after this break here on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and on YouTube at The Fan at KLGN. Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. We had someone on the YouTube chat chiming in, going back to our discussion on new Utah State head coaches, saying this won't be a popular answer, but honestly, bring back Craig Smith. He was a great coach and recruiter. I don't think he'd make the mistake of leaving again.
And probably not.
Yeah, probably not, but you never know. I did put out a poll on YouTube saying, what your opinion? There was one like, heck no, leaning no, he's not the greatest, but fine. And then heck yes. I don't think anyone's voted heck yes yet. It's been out for like 20 minutes, but 55% early return saying heck no. So there's some that like it, and there are a lot who really don't like it, and I'm more in that latter category. But we want to talk about the Utah Jazz as we end the show today, specifically Ace Bailey. The Jazz doing what they should be doing as a team, and they're losing still, losing to the Toronto Raptors last night. They've lost, 6 of their last 7. They made the mistake of beating the Milwaukee Bucks the other night. But Ace Bailey, who's in, I know he missed a game earlier, but he's been playing a little bit more, been getting more of a role. They've taken Keontae George and Larry Markkinen out of the lineup because they're playing too good. Ace Bailey over his last 3 games. Last night goes for 37. So that was obviously pretty solid. But looking at his last 3 games, he's averaging 31.7 points. So he's gone for 33, 25, and 37 points. Averaging 7.5 rebounds, just under 4 assists, 2.7 blocks. A lot of that coming on a 5-block performance against Philadelphia, but 1 block in 1 game and 2 last night. So he's getting some blocks in, getting 1 steal per game, and then he's shooting almost 50, 40, 90. Well, it's 45, 41, and 93 is his shooting splits. So shooting well from 3. He had 7 3-pointers against Toronto, hit 7 3-pointers. Mind you, he took 19 attempts, but 7 3-pointers against Milwaukee in that win. So he's attempting a lot of 3s. So like a lot of the scoring is just jacking up a bunch of 3-pointers, but I don't know. Do you think that hints toward what he could maybe end up being like? Because next year he's going to be like your 4th or 5th option. He's not going to be taking 27 shots in a game, but he could take a lot of 3-pointers and have some supplementary scoring driving to the hoop. Like we might be seeing a bit of a hint of what Ace Bailey could be in year 2 when he's paired with Jaren Jackson, Larry Markkinen, and Keontae George, Walker Kessler, and all that.
Yeah, I mean, the ability to get shots up will be more challenging for him. But I wouldn't
say more challenging. It's just less opportunities because it'll be a lot easier for him because of who's around him.
Well, yes, but he won't be exclusively fed the ball.
That's true.
Now.
And he won't necessarily have the green light to some of the shots he's taking. It's like, I'm just going to shoot now. And it's like, if Keontae George and Walker Kessler are on the court and Larry Markkinen, maybe don't take that shot.
Yeah, run the offense, what's the best shot available. But he's tied for the most games by a teenager in NBA history with 30-plus points and 5+ 3-pointers made. So he's on a great run right now. And while it kind of stinks where they're at in the record and what they're doing, they are getting a lot of development out of their young guys. Bryce Sensabaugh, Ace Bailey, Cody Williams has even come along a little bit more.
I still don't believe in Cody Williams.
I don't know if that's legitimate or if it's going to stick, but the Jazz are certainly giving him his best on-ramp possible.
Yeah, so the Jazz remain in the 5th spot. They're a couple games ahead of Dallas. There's still a 0.6% chance they could lose their pick in the lottery if they fell more than 3 spots. But yeah, 5th in the lottery odds, that's about a 10% chance of getting one of those top 4 picks, 10% for each pick. That's the odds for each of those. That's going to do it for us, though, for the show. Thank you so much for listening, watching, however you've been joining us here on the show. Make sure to tune in tomorrow for more local Cache Valley sports talk.